The federal government spends more than $4 billion per year on its 650,000 vehicle fleet, with a responsibility to deliver more than 150 million addresses 6 days a week. The Postal Service relies on a fleet of nearly 200,000 vehicles to deliver mail and parcel. Even small changes in the fleet management practices can save significant amounts of money. Private and public fleet management best practices seem to support a rolling replacement of vehicles as the most cost-effective strategy in the long term. The goal of a rolling replacement strategy is to make incremental improvements to a fleet so that technical, safety, and energy efficiency upgrades are made more frequently than once every other decade or once every 20 years. Additionally, technologies like telematics are enabling organizations to better track vehicle use. The use of these best practices and new technologies has already enabled the government to save millions in costs, but there's still much more to do. That is why it's puzzling to me. In a recently issued request for information, the Postal Service seems to suggest that it's planned to eventually select one supplier to build 180,000 identical new vehicles over the next 5 to 7 years, putting essentially all their eggs in one basket, so to speak. So to help put this in perspective, the UPS operates the second largest commercial fleet in the nation with about 90,000 vehicles. And despite a fleet of less than half the size of the Postal Service, UPS is able to successfully secure favorable pricing terms using a rolling replacement model despite only procuring less than 10,000 vehicles per year. You know, by any measure, the Postal Service must begin to replace its vehicle fleet. I think we all understand that. The Postal Service has 140,000 older models right-hand drive delivery vehicles with an average age of about 23 years. And at the end of most of them, and certainly are at the end of their useful service life. According to the Postal Service Inspector General, 22% of these delivery vehicles require annual maintenance worth about $8,300 or more. A new fleet is expected to cost in excess of $5.4 billion, yet the Postal Service lacks the liquidity to fully fund this cost. Even without a new vehicle fleet, the agency projects its cash flow position to grow worse over the next several years. And so another hurdle is the diversity of the Postal Service's business. Some mail delivery routes are hundreds of miles long, others less than 10 miles. Some routes have dozens of packages per day, while others only a few. Does this mean that it makes sense to have a multiple new vehicles, or does volume pricing make one vehicle the better choice? I'm pleased to see that Mr. Corbett's testimony suggests a greater sense of flexibility, Mr. Corbett, on the part of the Postal Service. I appreciate that. This flexibility, as well as an increased reliance on the life cycle cost analysis, will be vital in ensuring that the Postal Service makes the best long-term choices for its fleet. I hope that today we'll be able to hear the lessons that the private and public sector have learned about fleet management and how those lessons can be applied to achieve incremental improvements through the GSA and transformational improvements for the Postal Service. And finally, I would like to thank the witnesses for their time today. I look forward to your testimony. And as we are about to embark, what I'm going to do is reserve the time for the gentleman from Virginia, the ranking member, for his opening statement when he gets here. I would ask unanimous consent that our colleagues, Mr. Huffman and Ms. Lawrence, be allowed to fully participate in today's hearing. Without objection, so ordered.